obviously.
All right, there we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Eli and Josh Sports Talk, Episode 1. I'm Eli, coming to you live from Chicago. Josh, introduce yourself. Tell everyone where you're from.
Hello, and welcome to, as I call it, the Sports Room. This is Episode 1, as Eli said. On YouTube, I go by Unger to the Max. So I am broadcasting live from my recording studio here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Wonderful. Well, Josh, excited to debate. Everyone, we have 4 great topics to talk about this evening. The first is one that it'll screw with your mind because as a Pistons fan, I'm going to be supporting the Cavaliers, and Josh, as a Cavs fan, is going to support not the Cavs. It's going to be crazy. Stay tuned. It's going to be a heck of a ride. We're talking NFL draft. This is timely. It's April 28th. It's 7:17 Central Time, 8:17 Eastern Time. The draft just happened. We're going to talk about some winners and some losers. We're going to talk about Super Bowl MVPs. Should they always be QBs or should they not? And then the last topic we're going to discuss, as I scroll down here on my notes, we're going to talk about NBA expansion. Josh is really passionate about Seattle being the 31st team and the 31st city. So we're not going to debate that because I tried and I couldn't come up with something. We're going to talk about who should have the 32nd team because if you add one, you got to add a second. Isn't that right, Josh?
Yes, but interestingly, and I'll talk about this more, but the NHL did an expansion. They added Vegas. So you would think for their next expansion, they would have added an Eastern Conference team. But no, they have added 2 Western Conference teams because they brought Vegas in 2018. And the next team they're bringing in is Seattle.
So you're saying Seattle already has a new team coming, so they can only handle one? Is that what you're saying?
No. No.
Well, we could table that for the last debate there. Josh, why don't you start us off here? Let's talk about the debate that's near and dear to your heart. I think it's one that you deserve to start the conversation.
Oh, how apropos of you to use that word. So I've made videos discussing this many times on my YouTube channel. If you are a subscriber or a follower, you would probably know this. As a Cavaliers fan, I have 2 occasions where we made the NBA Finals, and I say we didn't belong. The 2007 season where we got swept by the San Antonio Spurs, as well as the 2018 season where we got swept by the Golden State Warriors. So in 2007, round 1, we swept the Washington Wizards. Interestingly, this was the second time we would play the Wizards. We played them in the first round for 3 straight years, actually, 2006 to 2008. And it was a 4-game sweep. Then in round 2, we beat the Nets in 6 games. And then the round where Eli's probably doesn't want me to remind me of this, but in the 2007 Eastern Conference Finals, somehow, some way, we were able to eliminate the top-seeded Detroit Pistons. Now, would you agree with me, Eli, in saying that the Pistons were the team of the early 2000s?
The middle 2000s, but yes, I agree with you.
Okay. I think it would have been great to get Spurs Pistons round 2 because you remember how good that series was. I believe it was in 2005, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Big Shot Bob ruined it for us.
Yep, Robert Horry. But I personally believe that the Cavaliers did not belong in that series against the Spurs in the NBA Finals. And the only reason we made it there was because Daniel Gibson came out of nowhere and shot the lights out throughout that series. But more than anything, we had LeBron go off for 25 straight points in Game 5. But who else did we have? Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Larry Hughes, Sasha Pavlovich, okay. But You really expect that a group like that to be able to compete with Bruce Bowen, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Michael Finley, Manu Ginobili, and led by head coach Greg Popovich. There we go. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, so here's where I have a bone to pick with you, Josh. I think you're right. The Spurs totally dominated. The Cavs were overmatched. I don't think the word that you're looking for is deserving. I would say the Cavaliers overachieved a year too early because let's think about it. The Cavs, and this is hurting me as a diehard Pistons fan through and through. I bleed red and blue, mostly red. Blue would be weird, but
Yeah,
that was a joke. Let's talk about who the Cavs beat on their way to the finals. You talk about the Wizards' sweep. That's a team that had Gilbert Arenas, Anton Jameson, Caron Butler. Don't even forget the guy who was a thorn in LeBron's side, and Deshaun Stevenson.
Oh, you can't see me.
Yes, exactly. Second round, they beat a team that made it to the NBA Finals just a few years earlier, albeit without Kenyon Martin, but they had Jason Kidd at the peak of his career, Vince Carter, sharpshooter, Richard Jefferson, the slasher. Then they go to Detroit and they beat one of the best teams ever. And it's not because the Pistons were, didn't have the full squad. They had, McDyess. They had a lot of the guys that came on as support after the first championship.
Yes, but McDyess had an emotional meltdown in one.
There wasn't an emotional. You're not wrong. There was an emotional meltdown, but if LeBron James scores, I forget what it was, the last 10 or so points in regulation, all the points in the first overtime, all the points in the second overtime for a big Game 5 win, right? The Cavaliers deserve to win. The Cavaliers deserve to win the series. They overachieved. They were the underdog, but there are a lot of times in NBA history or in sports history where a team you don't think deserved to win the championship, but that's why we play the game, Josh.
Right. But interestingly, if you look back at the NBA Finals, even though the Spurs swept them, listen to the scores. Games 1 and 2 were in San Antonio at AT&T Center. Games 3 and 4 were in Cleveland at what was then Quicken Loans Arena. Now it's called Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. But Game 1, the Spurs won 85-76. Game 2, the Spurs won 103-92. Game 3, again, San Antonio won 75-72. And Game 4, the Spurs won 83-82. So the Cavaliers were able to keep it competitive. I will admit that. But maybe deserving wasn't the right word. So I'll give you that. And
that's crazy. Side note, Josh, you're talking about scores. This is what, 10, 15 years ago. How low were those scores?
Right.
It's just crazy. Now it's 130 to 120.
Right.
But that's just a side note, reminiscing about the good old days for all of you older folks listening out there.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I don't think the 2018 Cavaliers should have made it. We should have been eliminated in round 1 against Indiana. But again, we had LeBron. Indiana did not. And then in the second round, Toronto just fell flat on their face again because they were playing LeBron. And then if Boston had the full squad, they would have beat us in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2018 without a doubt in my mind. They had home court advantage. And even without Kyrie, they dominated games 1, 2, and 5 when the series was in Boston. I'm still trying to figure out how we won Game 7.
Well, you had LeBron James. That's the common thread through everything here.
Exactly.
4-3 over the Pacers, LeBron takes over. 4 over the Raptors, LeBron toe. That's all I have to say. And then being down 3-2, LeBron just took over the game. He said, "Give me the ball and get out of my way." And in that case, that's what it takes to earn your spot, and they deserve to win in that case. If you're going to make the argument that injuries, if you're going to play the what-if game, Josh, I remember the first time the Warriors and the Cavs played, would you argue that the
Thank
Warriors
you.
deserve to win. If you're going to use the Warriors deserve to win, but Love was out, Kyrie was out after game one, and it was Matthew Dellavedova playing the Boobie Gibson role
Right.
in that situation. I don't know. You could, and if LeBron and Dellavedova, who goes to the hospital and gets an IV after a game because he's just dying out there,
Yeah, that was
if
game
they could,
3.
if they can take him to 6 games, did the Warriors deserve to win?
No.
Hmm.
Because the only reason the Warriors got extremely lucky in 2015. I forget who they had to play in the first round, but one of the series they had to play San Antonio. I believe it was either in the Western Conference Finals or the second round of the 2015 playoffs. And I believe it was Kawhi Leonard who got injured. And guess what? The Warriors were able to run away with that series. Fast forward to the NBA Finals. Kelly Olynyk decided to be a little bit of a bastard and tear out Kevin Love's shoulder in round 1, game 4 between the Cavaliers and Celtics at TD Garden. And then, like you said, Kyrie blew out his knee. But in 2018, many people were saying, oh, the Houston Rockets should have been in the NBA Finals instead of the Golden State Warriors. Golden State got lucky because Chris Paul wasn't there. I say no. Because, yes, Houston was without Chris Paul for Game 7. I'll give them that. But they couldn't hit the ocean if they were standing right next to it.
Yeah. That's the one. That's why you play the game, Josh. Anyone who wins the game in this, especially in a long series, deserves to win it. If it's March Madness and it's a fluke shot or something like that, I always think hard work begets luck. You have to put yourself in the position for luck to happen. So I would say that in both of those cases, the Cavs, unfortunately, from my perspective, deserve to be there. And you look at who they beat. They beat everyone in their path. That's all you can ever ask them to do. So I think they deserve to be there. I think they overachieved, but I think they deserve to be there.
Not so sure, but.
Well, anything else you want to cover on this topic, Josh?
Not really. I think
all
we
right.
covered all our bases.
Cool. What do you want to talk about next? You want to talk NFL draft, Super Bowl QB MVPs, as they always should be, or you want to talk about NBA expansion?
Well, since you just made the statement that QB should always be Super Bowl MVP, let's get right into it.
I've got some stats for you, but I'd love for you to, give it the first go around here.
Okay. So, yes, Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP, although I don't know why, because yes, he played amazingly in that fourth quarter. I'll give you that. Did you see how he played in the first 3 quarters? It was not good. He threw 2 interceptions, and Kansas City would not have won that game if it hadn't been for the stupidity of Kyle Shanahan going, I'm going to repeat what I did when I was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go away from what was working. If San Francisco doesn't go away from the run, Kansas City probably doesn't win that game. But for me, Damian Williams set the tone throughout that game. So I'm saying he should have won Super Bowl MVP. He had 17 carries for 140 yards. He also caught passes out of the backfield, which gave him a total of 133 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, including the one which sealed the deal in the fourth quarter. And like I said, if you go back and watch that game, you'll probably agree with me in saying that Mahomes didn't play well in the first 3 quarters. So, yes, the quarterback is arguably the most important position in football. I get that. And that's because they're the ones handing the ball off to the running back or throwing the ball to the wide receivers and tight ends. But that doesn't mean they had the biggest impact Like, look at Super Bowl 50. Peyton Manning led a pretty good Broncos offense. Did he win Super Bowl MVP? No. It was Von Miller because he was creating havoc in the backfield of Carolina all day. He had 2.5 sacks on Cam Newton. And then with Super Bowl 48, I mean, Seattle pretty much dominated that game, so you could have given it to anybody. So I was fine with them giving it to Malcolm Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you had the snooze fest. Super Bowl 53, where that was probably one of the most boring games I've ever watched. We were absolutely robbed because of the refs in both the AFC Championship and NFC Championship, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But it was Julian Edelman making the biggest plays. And guess what? He won Super Bowl MVP. So it just goes to show that, yes, the quarterback is the one handing the ball. Yes, the quarterback is the one making the deep passes to whatever wide receiver you want to mention or whatever tight end. But that doesn't mean they had the biggest impact.
Sorry, hold on. Lighting in this room is not great. Oops. All right. Well, Josh, I've got a couple points for you. So my argument is that unless, and it's not too dissimilar from yours, but unless there is an extenuating circumstance where the game or the offense is just straight trash or the defense is just so dominating, the quarterback should always win the MVP. And here's why. Unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstance. Let's look back at the last 10 years. All right, Josh, starting with the Packers Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. We're going to go through the MVPs here. And there's a reason why these guys were the MVP. Aaron Rodgers, 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. The next thing he had on offense was James Starks running for 50 yards. Eli Manning, throwing passes, killing Patriots, 300 yards. The next best player on the team, Ahmad Brash, had 72 yards and even sat down before the goal line, I believe, in that game.
Yeah, because he wasn't trying to score the touchdown.
I know, but it's just that's the lasting memory in my mind. Joe Flacco, or should I say Joe Fluco?
Yeah, for sure.
3 touchdowns, 287 yards, kept that team going, led them throughout the whole playoffs.
I would have made Jacoby Jones Super Bowl MVP for that game.
Why?
He had the biggest play. Don't you remember to start the second half? Takes the kickoff from San Francisco, says bye-bye, runs it back to the end zone.
That's a good point. Malcolm Smith, right? He won. You had a good point. It was all defense in that game. You rewarded the guy who got a big interception. And Russell Wilson, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a pedestrian effort in the Super Bowl. And Percy Harvin was the leading rusher as the wide receiver with 45 yards.
Right.
Tom Brady, 2014, 300-plus yards.
This one.
That's right. And Malcolm Butler could have had a good argument there, but I won't make you relive, not running it in from the goal line and just like sticking this, the knife in and twisting a little bit. I won't do that to you.
Who don't know, I am a major Seattle Seahawks fan.
So I won't make you relive the memory of the call when everyone thought it was going to be a run and then they play action and it was a pass and then Malcolm Butler. I will not relive that moment more than 3 times. I do
have my reasoning for why the Seahawks did that, but we can talk about that later.
That's episode 2. But Brady, 300-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a no-brainer. Von Miller, you were right. Manning couldn't even throw at that point. It's amazing that they were even in the Super Bowl like that. No 100-yard rusher. You could have made an argument. T.J. Ward, he had a fumble recovery and interception. You could have made that argument. But then Brady against the Falcons, 460-plus yards, 2 touchdowns, best comeback. No 100-yard rusher as a team combined. Nick Foles, Philly special. Like every time there's a quarterback that goes above and beyond. And then Julian Edelman, it's because Tom Brady played like trash, and there were 262 yards passing. Over half, 140-plus, went to Julian Edelman.
Exactly.
So unless there is an extenuating circumstance, it should be the QB. Now, the real debate comes down to 2019, where you think it's Damian Williams. Damian Williams, 104 yards and a touchdown. Okay, you watch the game. I watched
He
the
had
game.
2 touchdowns, not
Two.
one.
Sorry, one rushing and one receiving.
Right.
Sorry,
Including
yes.
the one, like I said, that put the game on ice.
Yes. Here's the thing. You watch the game. You're right. The 49ers were crushing. 20-10, fourth quarter. How do the Chiefs get back in the game? Is it Damian Williams or is it Patrick Mahomes?
All right, so let me give my explanation for this.
Okay.
Yes, Patrick Mahomes had that amazing 11-yard step, and then he threw it, I believe it was, 44 yards to Tyreek Hill?
It was quite a bomb that he threw, yes.
But I believe not just that passing play, but a lot of Mahomes' passes were set up because Damian Williams was getting big holes throughout the game. And when you can establish a running game, which is what San Francisco was doing early in the game, it brings the linebackers, it brings the safeties down into the box, and Mahomes can go, oh, there's McCole Hardman. Boom. There's Travis Kelce. Bang. Which I predicted Travis Kelce was going to be Super Bowl MVP, actually. And I also predicted that he would catch the game-winning pass. So I was wrong.
I would have agreed with you on that, Josh. Let me ask you, why do you think Damian Williams had all the holes to run through?
Because San Francisco was afraid of Mahomes' arm.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'm not discrediting Patrick Mahomes' impact on Super Bowl 54 by no means.
Okay.
I'm not. Of course, if Kansas City doesn't have Patrick Mahomes, they're not in that game. I mean, they don't. If Kansas City doesn't trade up to, I believe it was the number 10 pick to take Mahomes back in 2017, Kansas City isn't where they are right now.
Absolutely.
I think we can both agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so Mahomes had quite an impact. I'll give you that. But again, like I said, when you establish a running game, you bring the safeties, you bring the linebackers down into the box, and then Mahomes is able to have a more open field where he's like, oh, I can let my receivers use their speed. So he was able to get that 11-yard drop and then fire it deep down the field to Tyreek Hill, which I don't know why the San Francisco defensive back, Emmanuel Mosley, didn't go with Tyreek Hill on that play. That was stupid. But I still say Damian Williams had the bigger impact. Not to downgrade Patrick Mahomes, because, again, he had an amazing impact, a huge impact. But I just think Damian Williams should have won Super Bowl MVP. And like I said, I'm not saying quarterbacks should not win Super Bowl MVP. If they really had the biggest impact, fine, give it to the quarterback. But like I said with Super Bowl 47, Jacoby Jones, I think, should have won it. Or maybe Ray Lewis. But I just think people are like, oh, the quarterback had the biggest impact right away. They just automatically go into tunnel vision in a way.
Well, Josh, let me ask you something. And I hear you. You're making a darn good argument there. Who are the other running backs for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, they just drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Because Kansas City definitely improved, made their offense almost impossible to defend. So good luck, AFC West. Let's see. They had Damian Williams. They signed LaShawn McCoy later in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who their other running back was.
There's one more guy. I can't remember it. But one of my arguments is that most valuable player, right? Most valuable to the team, to the game. You could replace Damian Williams, and 5 years from now, we're going to forget Damian Williams played in the NFL. Probably. You could replace him with LaShawn McCoy or the other nameless guy who's the third string. You can't replace Patrick Mahomes. He is the most valuable person on that team. And in that situation, no one else would have made those throws. Someone else could have made the run.
True. You're
Those are
not
just
wrong.
my. I'm not discrediting yours. I think you make a damn good argument about Damian Williams, and I didn't remember that he caught the touchdown. I remember seeing that he ran for the 30+
Right.
yards or whatever, and ran for the touchdown.
But I guess my general argument is that people once a team wins the Super Bowl, like let's say the Packers beat the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl, just hypothetically.
Okay.
People are probably going to go like, okay, Aaron Rodgers had a fantastic game. I'm going to go on and vote for him for Super Bowl MVP. But what if one of their wide receivers like Devontae Adams had a more impactful game? He might not have had as good of stats, but if he had the more impactful game, I would say he should be Super Bowl MVP. Yes, it was Aaron Rodgers throwing him the passes.
You just took my argument, Josh.
So, yeah, I know. But, again, Devontae, like, it could be a simple hook play like this. I believe that's called a hook. Where Aaron Rodgers gets it to him, and it's only supposed to be like a 5-yard pass. But Devontae Adams turns on the afterburners and goes, no, I'm making this into like a 45-yard pass play or whatever. That's not Aaron Rodgers making the play. That's Devontae Adams. So, again, the quarterback might set up the wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, whatever. Or maybe the offensive lineman if you want to do a trick play, which doesn't happen very often in the Super Bowl.
Philly special.
Yeah, Philly special. Which apparently Mike Pereira says the official should have thrown a flag on that play because somebody was in an illegal formation. But I'm glad he didn't because they took down the Empire.
Yes. No, I don't disagree with you in that hypothetical situation. Granted, you just explained one play, but yes, I would see how that would be a situation. But you have to look at the thing as a whole. You got to look at the thing as a whole. That's one very specific play. But yes, I understand your point.
All right.
NBA expansion or NFL draft winners and losers? You feeling basketball? You're feeling football, Josh?
I'm fine doing either one.
All right, let's talk NFL draft winners and losers. I'd love to hear your 3 to 4 winners, 3 to 4 losers. I've got a feeling we're going to think the same on a lot of these guys.
All right, so my number one loser, why did the Green Bay Packers trade up for a quarterback? I'm sorry, but you were one game away from the Super Bowl, which the Packers, no offense to Green Bay fans, but they didn't belong in the Super Bowl, and you know it. That should have been Seattle in the NFC Championship because Seattle, San Francisco, if you watch their 2 games, you would agree with me in saying Seahawks, 49ers would have been a way better NFC Championship.
But Josh, do they deserve to make it, or did they over?
I'm not getting into that. But I'm not getting into that.
Okay.
But I will say the refs helped the Packers a little bit in the divisional round because I firmly believe that was not a first down. But then again, you'll hear Michigan fans go, that wasn't a first down. If you're an Ohio State fan, you know
it clearly was a first down, yes.
I'm not disputing you on that. I'm saying that's what Michigan fans would say.
They would be wrong.
I am a Penn State fan, not a Michigan fan.
Okay.
But anyway, we're getting a little off topic.
It's true.
But again, the Packers were one game away from the Super Bowl. And Aaron Rodgers is like, hello, I need some help. So when I saw the Packers trade up to number 26, which I believe they only had to give up a first and a fourth to do, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to take a wide receiver or a running back, tight end. No, they take Jordan Love? What? No, I'm sorry, but once the Packers did that, they lost for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's a big loss. You know what their second round pick was?
Not off
Maybe
the top
not.
of my head.
A.J. Dillon, running back, Boston College. Great
That's
running back,
right.
broke a lot of records. I believe was the first African-American captain of the Boston College football team. Great around character, good character fella. But you already have Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Why do you need another running back?
And then
I I would, honestly, I'm gonna argue with you here slightly. I think the Packers are winners in the draft. Aaron Rodgers is the loser. The Packers, it worked out last time when they drafted Aaron Rodgers late in the first round to start to groom him to replace Favre.
here we
Aaron
go.
Rodgers is the loser.
No. When the Packers drafted Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre was getting ready to retire. He only, well, I should say retire, because
Right.
he came out of retirement and played for their division rival, the Minnesota Vikings, as well as the New York Jets. But that's not the case with Aaron Rodgers. When you saw him on the field, for example, against Oakland, he was lighting up the Raiders defense like they were a Christmas tree. I think he threw like 6 or 7 touchdown passes. I should have started him in fantasy that week. I would have destroyed my opponent. Oh, well. Oh, wait. They're now called the Las Vegas Raiders. Oops.
We'll edit that out, and we'll edit that out later.
Whatever. Mistakes happen.
That's true. No, but if you think about it, Aaron Rodgers has been banged up, man. How many times do we see these backup quarterbacks come in and play for Aaron Rodgers? I think the Packers are winners. And I didn't think so before I started this debate with you. I have them down as one of my losers. I think Aaron Rodgers is the biggest loser. And maybe Packers today are the biggest loser, but I think 3 years from now, we can look back and say that was a smart pick. I am not an expert on Jordan Love. I won't pretend to be. But they saw something they liked, right? And the other quarterbacks that were coming out were just trash. So
I actually heard that Chris Ballard, the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, was trying to trade back into the first round in order to get Jordan Love. I've heard that report, which the reason the Colts did not have a first-round pick is because they traded the 13th overall pick to San Francisco for DeForest Buckner. But that brings me to my favorite team from the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. Despite not having a first-round pick, I still say they were a winner because now they have Marlon Mack, who's I believe is in a walk year. So, if you don't sign him to a long-term contract, which I think the Colts would be making a mistake if they didn't, but guess who they drafted? Running back out of Wisconsin. Does the name Jonathan Taylor sound familiar to you?
It does. It does sound familiar to me, yes.
Yes, because Ohio State, Wisconsin, I'm not sure you want to remember the 2010 game when they played each other.
2010, we're going that far back?
Jonathan Taylor wasn't there for –
No, I know.
But when College Game Day was there in 2010 for that game because Ohio State was coming in as the number 1 team in the country. Wisconsin said, yeah, we don't care, and they put an absolute whooping on them. But
I agree with you, Josh. I think the Colts are big winners. Don't count out Michael Pittman Jr. If I'm looking at the draft kind of whole – looking at it from bird's eye view, their first round pick is DeForest Buckner. That's how I would look at it. First round pick is Buckner. Then you got Pittman Jr., who will line up next to the ghost of T.Y. Hilton or crossing the ghost of T.Y. Hilton because where has he gone over the last couple of years? But you got
to banged up Andrew Luck throwing him the ball.
You're not wrong. And Jacoby Brissett. Yeah. So think about what they've done in the offseason, and then you add in a wide receiver, a running back. They got a safety. They got maybe the heir apparent, Jacob Eason. Who knows?
I'm not sure how much I like the Jacob Eason selection because from what I've seen with the Colts offense, yes, they have a good O-line, but one thing that I did like about Andrew Luck and one thing I like about Jacoby Brissett is they're able to, if the pressure gets through the offensive line, which doesn't happen very often because of guys like Quentin Nelson, their first round pick from 2018, I believe. They have the ability to scramble and extend plays or, start running and gain 5 or 6 yards. From what I saw of Jacob Eason, he's not really a mobile quarterback. So that worries me a little bit when you're going up against like a J.J. Watt, or what's left of J.J. Watt anyway, Whitney Merciless from Houston, and the Titans defensive line, because they've improved. I think the Jaguars are going to be a improved defense despite losing Ngakoue and Calais Campbell, which Baltimore, I'll get to Baltimore in a second. So the Colts are another winner for me.
Yeah, I agree. I have Colts down as a big winner. I've also got the Cincinnati Bengals down as big winners. And obviously they get the prize of the draft. They get, the hometown boy, Joe Burrow. But they've got a good receiver for him to throw to in T. Higgins. And I saw T. Higgins up close and personal when it was Ohio State versus Clemson. I know what he can do. He's tall, he's long, he's fast, is what they said on ESPN. They called him an area, or they called him a zip code receiver. Throw anything in the zip code and they'll catch it. You get a couple running backs that can plug a hole because the running backs the linebackers, were just embarrassed every single week. I think you got great picks across the board, and that's the benefit of having the number one pick in each round. Essentially, you get the best player available.
Interesting. So I'm going to go to one of my losers now, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Cincinnati Bengals, and I was going to say that was rude.
No. Although that AFC North is going to be interesting, but that's a different discussion for a different day.
Okay.
I did make a video just talking about a hot take where I said the AFC North would be the most interesting division in football. Although you can't say that without including the NFC South, but that's a different discussion for a different day. Maybe episode 2 or 3.
Yes.
Because hopefully this becomes a running series. But why did the Eagles use a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts? What type of message does that send to Carson Wentz? Because to me, that's like, we don't fully trust that you're going to stay healthy. So we're going to take another quarterback who can be just as reliable and can maybe play just as well as you. Or what I've also heard is that the Eagles want to use him as a gadget player. Okay, if you want to use him as a gadget player, fine. But don't spend a second-round pick on a gadget player. Now, I've heard but New Orleans uses Taysom Hill as a gadget player. Guess what? Taysom Hill didn't get drafted. He went totally undrafted. And then he didn't even start with the Saints. I believe he was originally drafted by Green Bay. And then the Packers cut him, and New Orleans said, okay, we'll take a chance on him. But that's the difference. Taysom Hill, he went undrafted, and now New Orleans is using him as a gadget player. Philadelphia used a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry, but you don't use a second-round pick on a gadget player. And I don't understand their first-round selection of Jalen Reagor. I've heard that he would have been available in the second-round pick, or second round, I should say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I had them down as one of my biggest losers. I don't know much about Reagor, so I don't want to bash, that, but there were a lot of really good receivers that were still there on the board. One of the deepest wide receiver classes in, recent history. Jalen Hurts, obviously, I think that was a little too high for a guy like that who really only showed for 1 year that he could throw the ball. Most of what he did now then was hand the ball off or run himself. I was just really disappointed with their draft as a whole. I think their draft was kind of messed up. Honestly, I think they were a little frazzled when one of my winners, transitioning back, took the guy that they wanted, and that was the Dallas Cowboys. I have them down as a big winner. Not only did they
America's team.
America's team, although I dislike them generally,
Oh,
but I think you
I
walk out.
outright hate them.
I think you walk out. They walked out with 3 starters right now. 4 starters, actually. Well, 3.5. CeeDee Lamb obviously can start day one. He can start in the slot with Michael Gallup and Cooper, Amari Cooper on the outside. I
Who
think that's
they
a perfect
got
fit.
from the Raiders for a first-round pick.
Yes, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes,
um,
Las Vegas Raiders.
Now, I think that's one of the steals of the draft. The next thing that I see, Trayvon Diggs, Stefan's younger brother, cornerback from University of Alabama. I think he comes in as a starter on day one. They just lost Byron Jones to the Dolphins. And so they need a guy playing the SEC against some darn good quarterbacks. He's got the NFL lineage. I think he's a good pick. And I think I don't know much about Neville Gilmore and Reggie Robinson the second. Their 5th-round pick, Tyler Biadasz, center, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, known for those beefy boys up front. And they're known for their offensive line and their center. They're basically, because there's never a quarterback in Wisconsin's offense, the center is the quarterback of that offense. I think you get a plug-and-play starter, especially because they just had their center retire for the Cowboys.
Travis Frederick.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to transition from the NFL draft a little bit. If you had to realign the divisions in the AFC, okay?
Okay.
Here's what I would do. As much as I enjoy the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, which I argue is the real rivalry in the AFC North, what type of division would it be if you moved the Ravens to the AFC East and you moved the Colts from the AFC South to the AFC North, and then you take the Dolphins out of the AFC East and move them to the South? Sorry, that's a little bit complicated.
No, I'm following. Geographically, that would make sense. I agree. But you're messing up a lot of long-time rivalries.
Yes, but I would love to see the Colts in the AFC North. I think that would be so much fun.
Josh, why is Memphis in the Western Conference?
That I don't know.
Well, I know why, but that same argument. It doesn't make sense, but that's just the way it is.
Dallas should not be in the NFC East, because if you look at a map, Dallas is nowhere near the East.
Yes, but it's east of California, which I assume you know, because that's just geography.
Yes.
I was just trying to make a joke.
Okay.
Hold on, bringing it back. I've got one more. I got 2 more losers and 1 winner.
Okay.
Big loser, the Houston Texans. Big loser. I would say one of the biggest losers in the draft. Well, you don't have a wide receiver. Their 2nd-round pick is David Johnson, right? Because they got the 2nd-round. No, they got the 2nd-round pick. My apologies. Ross Blacklock, great name, but not a great pick there. There were a lot of other much better people. They could have gotten a wide receiver much earlier to try to replace Hopkins. Literally nobody of record. They only had 5 picks. Their best player is gone. The biggest losers of the offseason. They couldn't even pull off a trade. I don't know if you saw what happened. Bill O'Brien got frustrated. He couldn't pull off a deal with the Lions. Couldn't pull off a trade.
Should just be fired from the Houston Texans, period.
I agree, but he signs his own paycheck is what it seems like.
Yeah.
So big loser there. I got another big loser. I've got the Chicago Bears. Yeah, Bears.
Bears.
They have 10 tight ends on their roster.
Yeah.
Well, they had 9 before Friday. Then they go out, and then they get Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame. And they get a bunch of cornerbacks, and just the guys, I don't know. I'm not going to, speculate on guys I don't know. But why go tight end? There are so many other needs. You've got to have more. I guess you could say he's going to be a weapon, but there are other weapons that you could have when you don't already have a full room. You just gave Jimmy Graham a contract.
Yep.
So I don't see that. All right, who's your biggest winner of the draft, Josh?
The defending Super Bowl champions.
Why is that?
Round 1, they get another weapon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back from LSU. If
He was
LSU,
like the fourth, but he was the fourth best running back on the board.
yes, but he fits that Chiefs offense absolutely perfectly. He might have been the fourth best running back on the board. I agree with you on that. But with those other running backs that fit in with what the Chiefs want to do, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire does, I would argue no.
Okay. Well, you're right. He does fit that gadget sort of back that they have,
Yes.
or they need.
So, and you can use him. Plus, that'll give him a change of pace with Damian Williams, or you can use a 2 running back set and have both Damian Williams and have Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the backfield and really get the defense's head spinning. Because do you double Tyreek Hill? If you do that, you're going to leave Travis Kelce open. Do you double Travis Kelce? Well, you might have to deal with Damian Williams or Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of the backfield. So why not give Patrick Mahomes another toy?
That's right. Give the Super Bowl MVP another weapon.
Oh.
See what I did there? I took one thing, and there was another thing, and I tied it back together. Josh, you might have been talking about last year's Super Bowl champions as the winner. I'm going to talk about this upcoming year's Super Bowl champions as the big winners of the draft. That's the Detroit Lions. The biggest winners of the draft. Let's go through this. Okay, let's pick in a position of need the best player available. Perfect situation. Jeffrey Okudah, consensus All-American, lockdown corner of the future, graded out better than Jalen Ramsey did in college. Check the box. Next, give Stafford a weapon. Great running back, Kerryon Johnson, gets hurt a lot. Bring in DeAndre Swift, who's got very few miles on that car. Right, he was behind Sonny Michel. He was behind Nick Chubb. He only had like 400 carries in his college career, half as much as Jonathan Taylor. So Taylor will get beaten down. He's fresh. Aquara, a good edge rusher. Jonah Jackson. How do you get a third-round pick? The second pick of the third round for the Lions is a plug-and-play starter. Fourth round, plug-and-play starter at the guard, Logan Stenberg. You've got 2 guys to plug the holes on the offensive line right there. I don't necessarily agree with the extra running back later. Maybe they picked the wrong wide receiver, but I hope I'm wrong. Then you go defensive line depth at the end of the draft. I think they walked out. I think they're the winners of the draft.
What about Buffalo? They got Stephon Diggs as their first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting choice to get Jake Fromm. I don't know what type of message that sends to Josh Allen, who I thought played well last season. And
well, you do need a backup, Josh.
That's true. But Josh Allen played well. And yeah, he runs a lot, so there's reason for concern. But I don't know. It just didn't fit for me. But, I mean, you got Stephon Diggs. Come on. Give Josh Allen another weapon with how well Buffalo played last season. AFC East is Buffalo's to lose.
That's right. But knowing Buffalo, they probably will figure out a way to lose it.
You mean like wide right?
What?
You mean like how they lost 4 straight Super Bowls?
Yes, precisely. All right, Josh.
Wide right.
Josh, we've got one last topic to discuss today, near and dear to your heart. We all know that Seattle should, and I spent minutes, not hours, minutes, trying to come up with a better story or a better reason than another city other than Seattle should get an NBA team. I couldn't do it. So I'm gonna concede that argument to you. You have won that debate without even having to debate it. But let's talk about the 32nd team.
All right, I have 2 cities for this one.
Pick one, Josh.
All right, how about Pittsburgh?
Pick the other one, Josh.
Kansas City?
Oh no, my case was for Pittsburgh.
What? Okay, could I just give my quick reasoning for Pittsburgh?
No, yeah, we could agree. It'd be a great way to end this if we agreed.
Okay. I also want to present my argument a little bit for Kansas City, but for Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh seems to be one of the hubs for rivalries. Would you agree with me on that one?
Very much so.
Because if you look at like the NHL, for example, the Washington Capitals hate the Pittsburgh Penguins. That team that plays at Madison Square Garden, the New York Rangers. Ugh, I need to wash my mouth out with soap after saying that team's name. My favorite team in the NHL, the Columbus Blue Jackets. We don't like the Pittsburgh Penguins. You look at the Battle of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. The Flyers absolutely hate the Penguins, and the Penguins absolutely hate the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the NBA, the NFL. Patriots and Steelers have a rivalry. I mentioned it before. Ravens-Steelers. That's the real rivalry in the AFC North. Not get out of here with Browns-Steelers being a rivalry. I'm sorry, but that's trash.
It's not a rivalry until one of the teams shows up.
Exactly. The Browns haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2003, and they've only beaten the Steelers twice since 2013. I'm sorry, not a rivalry. And then, the Pirates I guess, are rivals with the Cubs, Cardinals, Brewers, Phillies, but the Pirates don't really show up ever except for 2013 to 2015 when they made the playoffs. So, but because Pittsburgh is such a hub for rivalries, I would say you give them an NBA team, and I would say give it 2 or 3 years, they'll have a rivalry with the Philadelphia 76ers, maybe a rivalry with the Cavs, perhaps a rivalry with like Boston or something.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I had stats to back me up in case you were going to choose not Pittsburgh, but the Penguins in attendance, they filled 100.8% of their stadium, so they've oversold out. The Steelers fill up 91% of their stadium every single week, and it's a population that is pretty steady with about 300,000 people that could definitely support another team. Let's hear your case for Kansas City.
Okay.
And if it's about Patrick Mahomes, the show's over.
No, it's not about Patrick Mahomes. But if you go to a game at Arrowhead Stadium, which I would love to do that someday, they set the record for the Guinness Book World Record for the loudest outdoor stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They did that on they set the record at 142.2 decibels, and that was, like I said, that was achieved at Arrowhead Stadium on September 29th, 2014 for their Monday night game against the New England Patriots, or as I call them, the New England Cheat-Riots.
Clever.
But that record was set with about 8 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. And, of course, the Chiefs would go on to destroy the Patriots 41-14. And then if you look at the Royals mini run from 2014 to 2015, Kaufman Stadium was rocking.
Great name. Great. Most underrated name in baseball stadium history. But continue.
Well, I wonder why you say that.
Just what the fans decide. As my name pops up right below my face on Zoom. Continue.
But if you looked at Kaufman Stadium, that Royals fans were bringing it. I thought the crowd noise was gonna rattle this Madison Bumgarner in Game 7 of the 2014 World Series, but obviously it did not. As the Giants would go on to win that World Series, which that was one of the best World Series I've seen in recent memory. I love it when a series goes 7 games, because Game 7 is the best 2 words in all of sports. But I just think it's squarely because of the passionate fan base in Kansas City that when you bring college basketball to Kansas City. I think they have an arena called like the Sprint Center or something. That arena's rocking, especially if the Kansas Jayhawks are playing there, obviously. But I just think because of how passionate that fan base is, it makes total sense to put an NBA team in Kansas City.
Yeah, no, I see your point. Okay, side point. If you had to relocate any team,
Oh God, I hate doing this.
if you had to, I have an answer. If you had to relocate any team,
In any
keep in,
league?
no, sorry, NBA. Bring it back to the NBA. Bring it back. NBA, you had to relocate. We're not talking about where it's going from or where it's going to. Which team would you relocate?
Easy. Oklahoma City Thunder. Bring them back to Seattle.
Let's take away the Seattle aspect.
Uh,
Okay, let's say we both agree on Pittsburgh because we'll end it with we agree on Pittsburgh. Okay. Which let's say it wasn't an expansion and you were relocating.
Oh geez. I would say either the Charlotte Hornets. Nah, I can't say the Clippers.
No, they're gonna get a new stadium.
I've heard that. I think they should move to San Diego, but they're gonna stay in LA.
All right, here's mine, and then I want to hear your thoughts on it before we wrap up the show.
Oh, you better not say the Cavaliers.
No, I wouldn't dare. We just argued about the Cavaliers for the first third of the show. The Orlando Magic.
Interesting.
That was going to be my guess. Towards the bottom in attendance. They've never won a championship. They've been there for about 30 years now. They started in the early 90s.
They can't retain their stars.
And Orlando is not necessarily a big professional sports town, right? They can honestly, I think if you moved Orlando out of there or the Magic out of there, you could have Orlando be kind of like the Vegas East of a city where you could play neutral site games, stuff like that, where there's not necessarily tied to one fan base. That was my thought, but I've obviously thought about it a little longer than you, so
I'm
I
curious
sprung it
what
on
your
you.
thoughts are about me saying Charlotte.
I don't think you can do that to them as the newest city. And they've got backing and their attendance is pretty good. That's one of the problems.
Jordan has just run them into the ground.
I didn't say it. But I think you can't do that to them. I think Orlando's been around for a lot longer and they haven't done much.
That's fair. I mean, they prevented a very special 2009 NBA Finals. So
yes, but the Magic deserved to be there.
Oh, don't do it! No. I will. I'm willing to punch a computer screen. No, they did not deserve that.
Don't do that. But ladies and gentlemen, what we have done is gone full circle. Just to recap the first episode of the Sports Room with Eli and Josh, or Josh and Eli, whoever gets first or top billing. We've talked about the word deserving versus overachieving with the Cavs in 2007 and 2018. We've talked Super Bowl MVP QBs and how Josh and I agree on everything except for Patrick Mahomes or Damian Williams.
No, that's not true. You said Joe Flacco should have won Super Bowl 47 MVP.
That's true.
I said Jacoby Jones. So no, we did not agree on everything.
This is true. The Joe Flacco or Jacoby Jones and Patrick, but most dominantly Patrick Mahomes versus Damian Williams, I would say.
Yes.
We've talked winners, losers, and by that I mean winners, Lions, losers, Packers.
Hey, you agree with me on the Packers.
I agree with you on the Packers.
But you were saying before that you said the Packers were winners, but Aaron Rodgers was the loser. So now you're changing your tune on me?
Josh, is this called the wrap-up where we summarized everything that's going on? But yes, you've called me out on that, yes. And the last one, and I think most importantly, is that even though Josh and I can disagree very seriously on Mahomes versus Williams and the word deserving versus overachieving. We agreed, a wonderful way to finish off episode number 1, on if there was going to be, it's like the Cards Against Humanity. We all know
Great
what
game.
World War III is going to be fought over, but World War IV is going to be fought with. We all know the 31st team would be Seattle, the 32nd city to host an NBA team, or the 31st because LA's got 2, would be Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Josh, any parting words of wisdom before we sign off?
I really enjoyed doing this. I'm planning on doing more episodes of the Sports Room, not just with Eli, but I'm going to be bringing my friend Joe onto the show. He is a big Carolina Panthers fan. And if we get an NFL season, I'm going to be bringing Gangrene David on to preview Browns at Jets, because the Browns and Jets seem to love playing each other every year. It is interesting that I didn't mention the Browns as a winner or a loser for the draft, but that's neither here nor there. But until next time, this is Unger to the Max signing off.
And this is Eli. It was a pleasure.